So Leslie, take us back. What inspired Phresh Start LA?
What inspired Phresh Start LA was my need to give back.
What's going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence here with another episode of Watch God Work. As you know, we've been coming and having conversations with brothers and sisters in every area of I would call human endeavor that have shown excellence. But one of the things that many people may or may not know is their journey in their relationship with God. And so I'm so excited about this conversation today. Our sister, Leslie Rosales. Leslie, what it is, sis? What's going on?
Hi, how are you? I'm excited about today. This is going to be amazing.
Yes,
This is going to be awesome.
It already is. We prayed beforehand, and I happen to be fortunate to know Leslie and have known Leslie for I guess quite a few years now. Time has flown, and we're 2021 already. But was introduced through a great brother. A shout out to B Law, Brandon Lawrence, in LA. And just through that, just through being able to break bread together, just developed a friendship. And she's, as you'll hear from her story, she travels a good bit. I remember a conversation we had about compression socks. She may not remember that.
I do remember. I do remember.
Yeah, man, and a big old truck, and just a lot of just great things. And so I want to get right into it because to say that she's accomplished, to say that she's a Renaissance woman, to say that she is people first, it would be an understatement. I will kind of give an overview. I'm gonna try and sway it a little bit, but Leslie is the director of marketing at Def Jam. I won't give too much of Def Jam, more on Leslie today, but Leslie been involved in the music business, has curated, has stewarded the careers of timeless talent today, timeless talent. And for me, it hits close to my heart for Queensbridge love, from Nasir to D East now with Tiana, with YG. There's just so many people, careers who she stewarded and stewards, and she's a rainmaker in this industry and does great work. But she does more than that. And I actually want to give space for her to speak to, from the art to Lunchbag to all that. I want you to take us back and when you fell in love. Yeah, I mean, I love basketball. When you fell in love with music. So walk us back, take us back to LA, take us back to, the Gallo in the house. You know what I'm saying? You hearing the language. Just bring us to how you got there.
Oh, the story probably starts like in the 80s, like 80, 87, 88. My first recollection of hip hop specifically was the Beastie Boys. I forget the name of the album, but the song specifically was Girls and Brass Monkey. It was their first album that they actually put out with Def Jam. So it's crazy how life comes full circle because I work there now. So my brother played a lot of the Beastie Boys at the house. My mother played a lot she listened to KRS 101, so it's an oldie station. So I grew up listening to like 50s, 60s, and 70s music. And then my father was like, he was into the latest pop. So in the 80s, it was Michael Jackson, it was Stevie Wonder, it was a couple rock bands. So I had a very diverse and mixed ear when it came to music growing up. And so this was like in the 80s, mid 80s. And then in like 88, 89, my family moved to South Central LA from downtown LA. And here was different. Like West Coast rap was forming in the 90s with like NWA, Eazy-E, Ice Cube, and artists like them. And music was, West Coast hip hop was a lot of pain, a lot of what they were going through in the streets as far as like what they were dealing with the police, and a lot of unjust stuff going on back in the day, which still goes on now. So listening to that pain and that rawness in the 90s kind of molded me as well,
Mm.
as well as living in South Central.
Mm.
So I was able to relate with what they were saying.
Mm.
And then, just being introduced to different artists like Nas, like listening to their music and being fans, Nas, Common, Dr. Dre, learning about Jay-Z, Tupac and Biggie. Whoa. Just, I can keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely like 80s, early 90s is when I started to fall in love.
And so the journey from loving it, consuming it, to kind of switching to say, you know what, I think I may have something, or this is something that draws me. I mean, we'll get a bit into kind of like the intersection of how kind of God walked along with you in these things. But like, when was it like, I kind of want to get involved in this. I want to do this. What did that look like? When was that switch?
That switch was in 2006, really. So growing up, I listened to different types of music. Definitely in my teens is when I figured out how much I loved music because of the different emotions and feelings that it can make you, how it makes you feel. And even the nostalgia of listening to older songs, of how it brings back memories of love or being with family and happy times, even sad times. So I loved how timeless music can be. So growing up with a love for music, I transitioned into working in music around 2006, working with different artists on the management side, and just being exposed to now the making of music, going into studios and seeing how it's made, and kind of digging deeper into music in general.
What's clear is that even as you kind of talk about your journey in music, what kind of sticks out is you kind of the empathy you're kind of connected to your environment and kind of like the pain and South Central seeing that come through the music, and then ultimately being in touch with how you were feeling from the music and how it influenced you. Just talking about influence and just being in touch with those feelings and things. I mean, what was the introduction to even your relationship with God like? I mean, how was that more, I felt something, I experienced something, I saw something, and then I drew there. Like, what was first? Like, walk me through kind of how that kind of paralleled or intersected a bit.
So I went to George Washington Preparatory High School in South Central. Like, we are a very infamous high school.
Now break down. You got to give color we got to give color for our brothers and sisters. Because when you say South Central, this East Coast is like me, Brooklyn, New Jersey, who kind of just think like they think boys in the hood stuff. You know what I'm saying? Walk us through a little bit.
Oh no, it's just that. It's boys in the hood. It's menace to society. Like, how they depicted South Central LA in the 90s in those old movies is exactly how South Central was in the 90s. So a little history on my high school, Washington Prep. There's actually a movie about my high school, which is crazy because I just watched it this past weekend. It's on Netflix. It's called Hard Lessons, starring Denzel Washington.
Oh, you said Denzel. People, once you gave the Denzel, people like...
Yeah, this is young Denzel too. This is like 80s Denzel. So he plays the role of the principal, George McKenna, who came to Washington. He saw like all the gang violence and activity going on campus, and it shows like his journey on how he turned the school around. So yeah, I went to that high school. And I went to Washington from 98 to 2002, and we had an amazing performing arts program. We had an amazing band, an amazing drama department, an amazing chorus, an amazing dance team. And I was involved with the dance team as well as the drama department. I feel like that school was like going to a junior Black college because we were just so engulfed in Black and urban culture. Like, our plays would consist of Christian church scenes. I sang a lot of gospel songs. I danced to a lot of Kirk Franklin and other gospel songs. So that began my transition from just the love of music, the love of art, the love of dance, into now dancing to songs, gospel songs about God, about loving God, about how much He loves us, and just kind of merging art with God. So that was my introduction in high school.
This is so, I think, so powerful to hear. Like, it's giving me goosebumps a bit, because I think people in general hear the stories of, I grew up in the church, I was singing in the church like Whitney, right? You know, or like I was in the church and then I kind of left, or like Fantasia, or like, so there's enough stories where people say, okay, but I think there's not enough where people hear my introduction, or just my first dance with God came through the music that I heard in school, or just music that I heard. And I think that's just so important for people to hear, because I think, look at it, like, just think about just the orchestration of your life. You cultivated a range of love for music through parents, through what was allowed to play. You know, there's not everybody's houses, they allowed everything being played. Right? It's like my house. It was like jazz, it was this, it was that. And then you had that, and then somehow, coincidentally, you're in a performing arts, strong high school. On top of that, being introduced to God in a way like, through the music. And so beyond the music and that kind of cultivating, you kind of got the Don Clerk and got the Kirk Frank, got the CC playing, and you dancing. We all know the praise dance. You know, you had them streamers. When did it kind of carry beyond, okay, now music? You know, when did it, so kind of talk kind of like, how did it mature? What did that look like then?
Let's see. Are you asking like when was the maturation of like my spirituality?
Yeah. So like, how did it change? How did it go from, okay, God, I'm experiencing you and hearing about you in music, to, okay, I'm experiencing you just you're in my life. You're real to me.
The curiosity about learning more about God and actually having a relationship with God started around college. My very good best friend, Lizzie Ventura, I believe you know her. She is a preacher's kid. So having her as my best friend, her family has a church here in LA. It's a Spanish church, but, you know, I would attend, and I didn't necessarily know everything that they were saying, but I felt what they were saying. I felt God. So I would attend her church, and for a moment in time, I danced with her church. So a big part of my relationship with God, or me starting a relationship with God, was definitely my best friend Liz, just kind of welcoming me into her life, praying with me, praying for me. My 20s was definitely like a weird time, because I was dancing for her church, but not necessarily a full-blown member of her church. And I didn't dance with her church for a long period of time. I think maybe no more than a year. I kind of hopped around churches. I grew up Catholic, so I'm used to like going to church every Sunday with my mother. And even now, like, I still, every now and then, I go into a Catholic church and I worship there. So I never really belonged to a church, but I knew I had a relationship. I do have a relationship with God. And it all started like in my early 20s. And look, I had a close call with death.
Talk to me.
And I told you about this story.
Yeah.
I had this close call. I was traveling a lot in my mid-20s. And when you travel a lot, so this goes back to you mentioning compression socks. So I was traveling a lot on flights, and when your body stays still for a long period of time, clots can form starting in your legs. And if left untreated, those clots move up your body and can end up in your lungs, which makes your breathing a bit harder. And it's called a pulmonary embolism. And if they're left untreated, sometimes there are no symptoms, and it can lead to sudden death. So I had that. I think in 2013, I had several blood clots in my lungs formed from long flights. And long flights are LA to New York, LA to London a couple times, LA to Atlanta. So yeah, I had several blood clots in my lungs. I was hospitalized for about 4 days. I was on blood thinners for about 8 months after that. And it was, luckily I'm recovered. I now wear my compression socks on every flight. And compression socks prevent clots from forming in your legs, for everyone's knowledge. So when you fly, wear compression socks. So it was right when I got out of the hospital. I was still pretty weak, but I was working with a nonprofit called #Lunchbag, and I ran a chapter in Leimert Park. And I host an event there every first Sunday of the month. And I just got out the hospital, and I was contemplating on whether or not I should have this event. I'm still pretty weak. I need to rest. And I thought, no, let me just do it, because it's not about me. That event isn't about me, and it's serving people who really need a meal. So I went forward with the event, and I think I had about 50 lunches to give away. So I was looking for some homeless people in the street to pass the lunch out to. And I was passing them out in South LA. There weren't too many people out, so I started driving home. And then right on my block, there was a small tent city. And I figured, like, let me serve it to people who are actually living in my neighborhood. So I drove down the block, started passing them out, and the guy just told me, "Thank you. No one ever acknowledges us here, or if they do, they're telling us to leave. So thank you so much for this lunch. You're such a blessing." Like, I gave him everything I had, just so at least he'd have a meal for the day or the meal for a couple days. And I remember getting home and crying and just thinking, like, this is my purpose, to help people in need, whether it's, the homeless or students at my old high school who need mentorship, or helping these artists that I work with get further in their career. That is my purpose, to help people regardless of what their social class is, whatever tax bracket they're in. My purpose is to help people.
Mm. This is I think it sits so well to hear this, like to hear that journey, you're just feeling like, God, I'm valuable, like I have a purpose. Is that so? Even pressing that even a bit more, is that what made God attractive? Why was it good? Like, why was it good news to you? Like, why was it like, like, this God thing seems cool beyond like the music, beyond like, was it around like the purpose? Like, okay, if God is real, I think like I have a purpose and I'm valuable. Like, what was it for you specifically that's like, yo, I could rock with this, right? I'm curious about this.
I don't believe we're just here. There is a greater God that planned all of this out for us. I feel like I have this term that I say, I keep my faith fuel on full. And I feel when I'm empty, or I feel when like I'm a quarter tank or halfway. And then when I re-up on faith fuel, I feel like, I don't know, it's such an undescribable feeling, but just having ultimate trust in a higher power that is watching over me, making sure I'm good, who forgives me when I'm not always the perfect person, and who has a greater plan for me. That's what keeps me going. And I just don't believe that there isn't a God not watching over us.
This is going to help somebody. And I say this because I always say that, like the learning about God, learning about Jesus is like a painting, and we'll talk about painting. But everyone is looking at the same painting, but looking at it from a different angle. So what draws me to this painting, maybe the colors on this side, the hue, the contrast on this side, what draws somebody up on me, the character. Similarly, that God uses every different tool because he's divine, that he's created us creatively to draw. So for you, part of it was the music, the beauty, the art. Part of it was purpose. And I think particularly when it comes to work and business and people I think that's very big, because it's great to like, I'm needed, I'm purposeful, I'm doing good work. God created work. It's great, right? But hearing this, I think it's huge to say, well, one, this helps me make sense. This world doesn't make sense without it. One, it gives me sense of security, but also this piece of like, I want to know that I have a purpose. And in order for me to have a purpose, there has to be someone who is kind of sovereign over all of this stuff. That is beyond real, and I think this is a great path to take, right? What has been the journey or the dance? Because I think there's sometimes, and I had this conversation with my sister about this, and she talked about how her and art as an actress, just navigating, right? Because she sees herself fully in the full sense of that this is entertainment as an actress, and how does she kind of navigate? Okay, God, all right, you have a purpose for me. All right, how do I navigate this purpose? Has there ever been for you, what has that looked like? What has been your sense of kind of your guidelines where you're like, you know what, how do I view this? It's like, you know what, I love this music. I love the fact that it is telling a story that people need to hear, right? Like, what is it? How do you connect that with God and purpose? You're like, God wants the marginalized stories to be heard. So this is the work I'm doing. So talk to me through how you think about it in your career.
I don't do anything that my heart isn't in. So whether it's working with a certain artist, or anything I do, if my heart's not in it, if I'm not 100% with it, there are a lot of stuff that I pray over, a lot of people I pray over, like, God, should I do this? God, is this a right person to let into my space? And I'm always okay with things where people either being permanent or seasonal. Because, there are people who come in and out of our lives, and they were just meant to be seasonal. So I pray over the artists that I work with, as well as the things that I do, and my heart just has to be in it. Yeah. I can't really, it's hard to really dive into something if I know my heart isn't in it. And that usually just comes from a feeling that God gives me.
Well, so this is perfect, because I think for many people, the distance around faith is that it seems very impractical to some people, right? They don't get it. They're like, what does it look like? Are you talking about?
Look, that was me in my 20s.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
20s.
And I'm like, I relate to that. I relate to that because it feels like a whole other culture and language. You know what I'm saying? It's like, y'all over there, he talked when? So Dolby surround sound how? So, that shift, so practically for you, tangibly, how do you experience God the most? Right? What does that look like when you're like, you know what? I experience God the most, and then I'm gonna walk you, and I'm gonna ask you to walk us through a day of what does it look like for you to journey with God practically?
I experience God the most when I'm alone and by myself. I feel like that's when I feel His Spirit stronger than ever, or even just driving by myself, or walking somewhere. I feel like I know He always places me at a certain place at a certain time, so I can see something, or so, okay, here's something that's a message to me. I remember walking down Melrose Avenue in LA. I was walking to my car, and there's a lot of street art and graffiti art and stenciling in Melrose. And I know I was down that day, and I looked down, and there was a stencil that said, "You are exactly where you need to be." And that's one of those.
Woo, God knows your love language.
That's one of those signs from God. That was from God. Yep. For me to, feeling down, walking on that street, and just looking down at that moment, that's what God wanted to tell me. So communication from God is not just a feeling that He gives you, or what your subconscious is telling you what He wants you to hear, but signs, billboards, art, maybe a card or a letter that you get from a loved one, or a text message. God is everywhere. God is everyone and everything. So it's not necessarily a feeling that you feel. Communication from Him can come through so many ways.
The bar. Yeah, this is so usual. And so there's two things. Obviously, there's one, the art, and I'm going to get into that a bit because she ain't gonna say it. Let me say it right. But you ever heard there's I always tell the story of people around the gorilla experiment. There's this research where they actually had a guy in a gorilla outfit. They essentially had a experiment where people were passing a ball back and forth. People had white shirt, people had black shirt, passing a ball, and they asked people to count how many times the ball was thrown back and forth. At the same time, they had somebody in a gorilla outfit run in front of the camera, like run around. And then they would ask people after the study how many people saw the gorilla. And it was like 8 out of 10 people didn't see the gorilla. And then they even asked people who were X-ray, people who are X-ray technicians, their job is to find things on X-rays. 8 out of 10. And the takeaway is that you only find what you're looking for. If you didn't look to see that, the gorilla outfit, you're not going to see it, right? As amazing. And I think some of that comes up when you're talking about this. You're like, yo, God, if you're looking for him, you'll find him, right? As the scripture says. And I think as well, the love language thing came up so much is that God knows your love language. He's spoken to you. And so he knows art. He knows these things. And I think that's great for people to hear that God is going to communicate to you in the way that you'll hear his voice, right? In a way that you can hear it. But ultimately also that you just have this sense that you're faithful, that he is speaking to me. He is doing those things. I would love for you to talk a bit about the art, because this is just a piece that I've been blown away from. Like, I'm like, yo, when it was first time, I'm like, yo, she's in the art, what's going on, man? And I'm a little low key on the art. I try and pick up a little things, you know what I'm saying? I try and do my thing. There's levels though. We know there's levels. I'm not Swiss level. I ain't there. When did that start? Right? Because I can imagine it probably tied in. You come from an arts background, the art and stuff like that. So when did that start? When did you put that into overdrive a bit where you're like, yo, this is going to be my outlet. This is going to be my thing. So talk to us about that.
It started right after I was hospitalized. I couldn't travel for 8 months. So I couldn't fly. And I was so used to just being on the go, being out of town. It was weird and hard for me to be grounded in LA for so long. And I didn't know what to do with myself. I did not know what to do with myself. So a friend of mine, he had some art supplies at his house, and just kind of playing around, I said, hey, okay, I'm just going to paint the beach real quick. And I painted it, and it looked cool. I was like, okay, I can do this.
It looked fly, y'all. She's being, her mind, it looked really, really good.
I was like, this is a cool little beach. I'm going to keep painting because it felt good. And then painting ended up being therapeutic for me because I can't travel. I can't really work, but I can still create. And I was doing that through painting. So I think the first 6 months of 2014, I painted about 60 pieces. And I painted for therapy. I never had the intention of selling anything or having an art show. So I'd paint these pieces and I'd post them on Instagram, and then that would be it. And people would comment, hey, that looks great. Good job. Keep going. And then a friend of mine commented, I want to buy that. I ignored him. Kept painting. He called me like, yo, seriously, I want to buy that. How much is it? And I'm like, $250? He was like, all right, cool. And I was like, okay.
You're like, I
may be onto something
he
here.
took the first offer. The manager and you was like, shoot.
Damn, I should have went higher. And I had all this art. And I'm like, well, maybe I can sell some pieces. I have access to an art gallery, which is the Pullum Art Center right in Leimert Park, because that's where I host #Lunchbag. I asked him if I could use the space for an art show. He said yes. And by June of 2014, so within 6 months of painting, I had my first art show. And I showed about 30 pieces and I sold about 20 pieces that night. And then it just kind of went from there. I had an art show. I've had 4 more art shows in LA. I've done Art Basel twice, and I've had 1 art show in New York. So since I've moved to New York, I actually haven't painted as much. But my full count is, let's see, I've been painting for 6 years now. I've painted over 200 pieces, and I only have 19 left.
Y'all see this? She done hit us with the beautiful mind. Yeah, man, she was in the joint. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not saying this. I'm saying this because we're friends. Like, I just imagine you looking out the window slowly in the movie, like, and taking a paintbrush and be like, yo, like, yo. But that, and I remember seeing that paintings by LSMR. Yeah, I mean, y'all check it out. Go to the website. You know what I'm saying? Please do.
Yeah.
But I just think that, but that's like supernatural. How that in one moment you could sit down and then being grounded, for pun intended, right? But ultimately discovering something. But it seems so consistent. It doesn't seem right. The point, like the purpose, the fact that there has to be some sort of order or sense to this, that you would be returning or discovering art as painting when you went to an arts high school, you got into music, then gospel music, you're killing it, moving culture, doing amazing work, right, in the culture through music, and then art. It just makes so much sense, right? I think
I was born a creative. I was just born to create. I was born to this is a quote on my LinkedIn. I wish I knew exactly who said it, but it's on my LinkedIn account, my LinkedIn profile. My purpose is to transform lives through the power of art. Art is music, art is painting, art is film, art is so much. But that's like my quote on my LinkedIn. My purpose is to transform lives through the power of art. Ever since I was a teenager, dancing in high school, to now working in music and creating paintings. Yeah, that's a part of my purpose.
Yo, this is the greatest creative of all time is God. He spoke the world into existence. He put the hues and the colors of the birds, the air, the hues, the melanation, the shapes, the bodies, the purpose, the places, the beauty of creation, heavens and earth. And you're doing your Father's business. You're doing your Father's business. It's so powerful. That needs to be cultivated because that's God work. It's important. And I think I'm hoping that people hear that come through. That's how God has guided you. That's how God has spoken to you. That's how He's reconnected you. That's how He's grounded you for your own life's sake. He used art to save your life, right? In many ways. And so I'm really, really, really grateful for this. I do want to kind of, before we kind of pop away, I do want to ask a few more questions, but ultimately see what you're up to now, because your hand's in a lot of stuff. Let's see. Let me see. What's the work that you're involved in now where you say, yo, obviously it's all work. I know this is like saying, what's my favorite food, my favorite child, right? I'm not going to put you on the spot like that. But what's the work you're involved in now where you're like, yo, God, I never in a million years thought I'll be working on something like this, right? Or doing something like this. What is that for you right now?
It would be what I do in music. I grew up listening to I'll say this. I love watching Versus. It's a series that Timbaland and Swiss Beats created during COVID and quarantine. It's dope. It's, they've brought together, started off with them bringing producers going against each other and writers and then actual artists going hit for hit against each other. So I've never missed one. And maybe 70% of the music they play are songs that were put out by Def Jam. So I grew up listening to Def Jam. Like, my first recollection of hip hop was a Beastie Boys song. put out by Def Jam. I listened to a lot of Jay. I've listened to a lot of R&B. So there was Drew Hill. There was the whole Murder Inc. era with Ashanti, Ja Rule. Look, I could keep going with
hey, man, you know,
with with Def Jam's catalog.
The catalog, the Def Jam catalog is like, it's like just saying like, it's just like, whoa, there's too many conglomerates. So like Sony, BMG, it's just too much, right? So it's hard for me even to keep track. But I think you making it clear, right? That,
but working there is like, wow, I really work here. Like, so many people have passed through this building and walked through these halls and actually made a difference and shifted urban hip hop, Black culture, and to be part of that is amazing to me. I never thought I'd be working at Def Jam. Never thought, like, and and to be working with like with well-esteemed execs within the music industry, and now I'm texting. I'm not gonna say names, but I'm texting like these huge producers from back in the day.
I ain't gonna drop it on y'all. You know what I mean? The names. It's on text. You know, it's like Obama on the text. You know what I mean? The J line.
Like, I can't believe I'm texting this person. I listened to all his music, and now I'm working with him on a new artist that he wants to put out. Like, this is crazy. And at the same time, I never feel like, oh, I don't belong here. I know I belong here. Like, I am going to be a future exec who really moves a lot of stuff and music, and just does a lot of purposeful things that shifts how people consume music, how people listen to music, how people feel about music. I belong here. So that's my, I never thought, you know, dancing at Washington Prep, dancing to Yolanda Adams. I didn't think, you know, I didn't think I'd make it this far. Yes. But here I am. And it's been a beautiful journey.
We never knew we'd take it this far, right? And in more ways than one. I'm grateful for you, and I think that this is the reason why this is so powerful beyond you. But I think that you're giving people an understanding of how God places people throughout the world, and influence and culture. That we're called to the end of the earth. That means wherever people are, the people of God need to be, and that your excellence. Right, you may be putting out the song that someone hears that reminds them they're not alone, that people understand them, that maybe there is some purpose to their life, they're not alone, that maybe there is some order to life, maybe this God thing is real. And I think that sometimes with the creative God, people think very limited in how God moves and works, and think about your story and how is it. And I think people definitely take that away, among so many other things from this conversation. I forgot. I know I wasn't gonna call you to do this on a text message because we got T-5, but I ain't gonna maximize like that. But you know, I didn't want to drop all the names. You know what I'm saying? Who are you working with today? Who are you working with? Obviously, I know some good names. You know what I'm saying? They're some of my favorite. Who are you working with today? Who have you worked with over time? And you know, don't feel bad. It's not like you're getting the awards at the award show. I'm gonna leave somebody out. I want to thank God. I want to thank. But who have you worked with? You know, so just so people understand how God has moved you in the places He's placed you
in. Okay, I could just start in the beginning. So I started managing DJs here in LA. So there's DJ BAD, DJ Jam X, and then from there I moved on to working with actual musicians and artists, starting with Jay Myers. And then there was Nas, and then Miguel, a stint with Lady Gaga, Toni Braxton, Grayson Chance, Mindless Behavior. Then from there, Alina Baraz, Nilo, Future, and then YG. And then on at Def Jam, Dave East, Danny Lay, YK Osiris, Bobby Sessions, Tiana Taylor, Jeremiah.
Thank God, thank you, God has kept him, and
yes,
sustained him. So we thank God for that.
Yes, absolutely. Bina Rideau, and I think those are my heavy hitters.
Yo,
I think so.
yo,
Yeah.
we didn't want to lead off. We've broken bread before a few times. We didn't want to lead off so heavy, right? but I think that's just tremendous, and I think it goes to show with God. And so I would love to give space for you to, when somebody's listening to this and they're hearing your story, they're hearing your journey, they're seeing how God has been interwoven, what drew you to God, what this practically looks like. What advice, if any, would you give someone who's curious about God? They're kind of like where we were, you talk about the early 20s, you're like, what is this? What's going on? What would you say to them, given your journey, given your history, to kind of continue to explore what maybe God may be inviting them into?
My advice is to keep an open mind and an open heart. I for sure struggled, like in my early and mid 20s, with not accepting that there's a God, but being open to having a relationship with God and letting Him work in my life and guide me to where I needed to go. Because I got in a lot of trouble in my early 20s, and falling down in a ditch and trying to figure out how I'm gonna get out. And sometimes my peace and my way out or my comfort was in praying, asking for forgiveness, accepting that God loves me and that there is a lesson in what I'm going through now, and that life doesn't always have to be this bad if I just let Him in my life. And I'm not going to say that I know everything about, that I have a doctorate in relationships with God. I just know my story, and it was definitely a struggle in my 20s, and just accepting and wanting to conform into what I think society wants me to be and look like, and everything is about to turn up and nothing else matters but having fun. There was just so much more to life than that. Like that life got me into trouble. Like, don't get me wrong, I still go out, I party, I have a good time, but there was more to life than that. I can still love and enjoy music, just in different ways and with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that in my mid-20s, and I'm thankful and grateful for that.
I don't know if there's a better way that we could have closed this conversation with that. Y'all, Leslie, thank you. Thank you for sharing
Thank you.
your story. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the culture. It's so great to know that you are in the building, and that behind this, there's a mind and there's a heart that is praying over these artists who have a mind to help people. That the work that you're doing in South Central LA, the work that you're doing all around, being in Lemon Park, and I do travel there. I've done a hashtag Lunchbag with you, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for serving people. Thank you for loving people. Thank you for loving us as He's loved you. And so we can't wait to share more of your story, and we can't wait to support any other project stuff going on that we gotta know about, what we gotta look out. We got the end of June. Let us know what we gotta go. Let us know where we gotta go. What you got going on?
I mean, it's the end of the year, so it's winding down for me, but definitely check out Tiana Taylor's The Album. It's a solid R&B album. This year I also put out YG's album, My Life 400. I put out Dave East's Karma 3. I put out Bino Rideau's Outside mixtape. And then 2021 artists to look out for, this extremely talented artist. His name is Bobby Sessions from Dallas, Texas. He's going to make a huge, big splash in 2021. An artist named Lotta Goat and Camino. So I'm excited about working with those three gentlemen at the top of 2021, and just a lot of great things. I'm going to keep inspiring. I'm going to keep, motivating people and mentoring, and I'm all about uplifting and just being positive, thinking positively, spreading love, giving that good energy, giving those good vibes wherever needed. And yeah, we could get through a lot of things if we just loved on each other more.
Mm.
And that's what we need right now.
Yeah, she's so LA. Good vibe. You know what I'm saying? I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. God is good and God is love. And that's no better way for us to close this. Leslie, we love you. I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too. Thank you.
Yeah.